and welcome back to another video today, here again on Forza Horizon 5, to test out the latest brand new, very bright red Ferrari that is ridiculously fast, that has just been added to Forza Horizon 5, and is more interesting than the pickup truck in the car pass this week, which is very similar to two things we've already seen, so I'm not going to bother with that, so thought I'd take a look at this, which is of course the Ferrari SF90, and is the prize car for completing 80 points of the overall seasonal playlist here in Forza. So away we go for a first drive in the SF90 Stradale. I do love the fact I did just look at paint colours before we came out here and selected this grey, but I do love the fact that Rosso Corsa isn't available, because that is a most boring choice on a Ferrari. I hate when people choose that, it's just too obvious, although it is rather inaccurate that isn't an option. You may be wondering what that default orangey colour was, but I believe that's Rosso Dino, which despite its name is actually more of an orange, so not quite sure why it's called Rosso at all. I do much prefer that colour to the red, but despite quite liking that, I feel like a more subtle colour like the silvery grey we've got on this now fits this car better, given its kind of characteristics and stuff. I kind of feel like it's more of a road car than a track car, if you like, despite its rather impressive figures, which we'll get onto in a minute. As for the way it looks, when it came out I wasn't too sure about this, but I am quite liking this new Ferrari style now. I prefer it to the F8 Tributo, which I don't mind the look of, but that as a car is rather redundant at the point this is added in, because this is newer and faster basically, and better technology and all sorts, so not sure really the point of the F8 being in the game. That's pretty much the same as a 488, and now that this is in there, that's kind of a redundant car and entirely useless addition at this point. As for the interior, as with any modern Ferrari, I don't like it. I don't like all of these touch buttons instead of real buttons, screens even for the smallest button, and I absolutely hate, and always will, the fact they put the indicators on the steering wheel, because steering wheels move, and when it's upside down that's going to be rather irritating and confusing. You're going to indicate the wrong way and then have a big crash, which is a shame in your rather expensive Ferrari, really. So yeah, that's one feature I really hate, and that's not even the worst one. The worst one is the fake manual gear box thing in the middle, which is in fact just buttons for a gear selector. It's absolutely ridiculous and I hate it, and luckily you can't see it from interior cam in Forza. This actually isn't the first time I've driven the car. I've actually tried it in Monthly Rivals a little while ago, and it's ridiculously fast, barely even enjoyable. Having said that though, on the road it felt a bit nicer. There was a lot of grip from the all-wheel drive, but you can tell it's heavy, because it does have a tendency to slightly understeer. The reason for the name, the SF90, is because it celebrates 90 years of the Scuderia Ferrari F1 team, and Stradale obviously means road. It has nearly 1,000 horsepower, 986, made up from 769 from the 4-litre V8, and 217 from the 3 electric motors. They power the front wheels and the engine powers the rear. Produces 1,238 Nm of torque, and weighs a massive 1,671 kilos, which would explain that slight understeer tendency we found before. It's not the Assetto Fiorano track version, which is lighter, so don't really know why Forza chose to add the heavier version, but anyway. It does make sense the weight when you consider the engine size, hybrid system and all-wheel drive, and well, it's kind of aimed at being a usable almost GT style car, despite being a mid-engine supercar, as the Stradale part might suggest. In reality it can drive in just electric mode, where it's just front-wheel drive, which is a first for a Ferrari, but unfortunately we can't do that in Forza, and it would only cover 16 miles like that. And apparently it produces 390 downforces at 155 speeds, which sounds like a lot and will be rather useful when we get to the track, which we are conveniently arriving at now. So as well as the ridiculous amount of downforce that this thing produces, it also has a DRS system a bit like a Formula 1 car apparently. I didn't actually see the wing doing anything, so I'm not sure how that works, or whether it's not a thing that can be activated in Forza. So not quite sure about that, but potentially that will help here on the track. As always with all new cars, I take it for 5 laps around the festival, to see what the best time I can get out of it is and how it compares to the others. It's also fast in a straight line. Just before I came to the track, I took it down the motorway downhill section and got up to a rather amazing 248 miles per hour. Not the fastest thing in the world, but it's still ridiculously fast. Here in Forza, it's S2 Class 915 PI starting, which means it puts it higher than the 488 Challenge car and the McLaren 765 LT, which is a track-focused car, so it'll be interesting to see how the time compares to that around the festival. The McLaren did a 59.359, and yeah, despite what I said about the handling earlier on the track, it did feel very good, despite its weight. It did take a few laps to get used to, maybe taking slightly less corner speed, turning in a bit early to account for a little bit of understeer, particularly through here. You can take it flat if you get the line right, which I wasn't to start with. And yeah, it was quick, and it was better than I was expecting around the track, but I'm still not necessarily a massive fan. I don't enjoy cars this fast. I don't think I get the full potential out of them. I much prefer slower machinery, so I don't spend much time driving things like this, and I'm usually not very good at unlocking the full potential of cars like this. So, as I suspected might be the case, it was slightly slower than the McLaren, despite being all-wheel drive and being slightly higher PI. It just was a little bit too heavy, and the 765 LT, to be fair, is designed for going around a track, whereas this isn't. Potentially the Assetto Fiorano, or if they do a high performance version later, would be more comparable to that. So not quite sure why it's higher than PI than that, probably just because it's more powerful, so in a straight line it would easily smash that time. And it wasn't that much faster than the 488 Challenge either, the Stradale doing it in a 59.565, so a tenth faster than the 488 Challenge, but a few tenths slower than the McLaren. So kind of what I would have expected from the SF90. So in terms of upgrades, it has a few kind of interesting options. It has the LaFerrari V12 hybrid setup as an engine swap. It has your usual rear-wheel drive swap, which is an option on most all-wheel drive cars, and of course the rather hideous Forza aero, which is quite massive on this car. The wing sticks out quite a lot, and there's an interesting paint group option that you might have spotted. The little fin on the roof, the little aerial, is paint group 2 for reasons, so you can paint it bright orange like I have if you really want to. So that is going to do it for a first look at the Ferrari SF90 here on Forza Horizon 5. I don't want to go and upgrade it further because it's already faster than I like cars to be, and in fact the LaFerrari engine swap doesn't change the PI or the performance of this car all that much, and all you're going to do if you upgrade it, if you're that mad, is make it even more undrivable, probably. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who could tune it well to the top of S2, but I'm not one of them, and I don't generally like driving cars that fast, so I don't really see any point in doing that. It is good to see it in the game so soon after it came out, although like I said, that kind of defeats the point of putting the F8 Tributo in here. But overall, it's quite a good car. It's faster than I would like to drive generally, but that's kind of just a trend of all modern super and hypercars. I'm not quite sure where this falls, probably still a supercar. It's supposed to be more series production, despite being probably similar performance to a LaFerrari, which of course was a hypercar. But anyway, fun thing, and good to see them adding stuff newer and quicker than they have been, because it usually takes them far too long, like I say with the F8 Tributo. That should have been in here a while ago. But anyway, there we go. That's a first look at the Ferrari SF90. It's kind of as you'd expect it. Heavy and understeery, ridiculously fast in a straight line, not that bad round a track, but not as fast as a track car, and doesn't really require any kind of upgrades because it's just ridiculously fast already. So if you do that, you're entirely mad. But there we go. That is going to do it for a first look at the Ferrari SF90. It also comes in some rather nice paint colours. But yeah, that is going to do it for today's video. So thank you very much for watching, and I will be back with the next video very soon.